Welcome to Earth Centric Lighting for everything lighting related and how to use lighting in your projects and life. Hey guys, thanks for joining in on the show here. I got Robert Solar. Is it Solar? Soler.
Solar is I get solar a lot, but I'll respond to pretty much anything.
Solar, nice. Here with me, and I met him in Spokane, Washington. He was doing uh, a presentation for a CEU, a continuing education course about lighting and the health around it, and it's how it impacts our biology. And he knows the title. I don't think I have the title right of that course, but it was very, very amazing. It's very impressive, and we got to talking, and I asked him to come on the show to do an interview. And Robert, I don't know, it would be great if you could introduce yourself and maybe share a little bit about your background with and what you've been doing in this space.
Sure. Yeah. I started out, sometimes people like the whole backstory, which
Yeah,
I don't always give, which was that when
we would like to hear that, I think. Yes.
which is I grew up and when I was maybe about 10, I actually had a really severe allergy to the sun. So I'd play outside like most kids, at least those days. And I would come back and I just like from anything that was exposed to the sun, just like these massive rashes. My daughter has it now too. I kind of grew out of it a little bit, but like I think that I've always had an appreciation for the sun, the value, the power that light has. And so I that just kind of like that's just something that was like a almost like an origin story. And then I started my academic career. Spent some time in electrical engineering, went to the Lighting Research Center for a master's degree in light because I was intrigued by light for some reason. And I thought that there was a lot of value in it. And then I got recruited by NASA. And there I was brought on to help put the first LED light on International Space Station. Subsequent to that, I started working with the researchers who were doing light and health and the human research program. And these people were the people who discovered that there are receptors in our eye that are different than visual receptors, and they go to different parts of the brain. And that basically guides how we feel, our mood, focus, and alertness, one, but then also circadian rhythm. And what they're learning is that a significant issue that they have on space station is that there's not that robust 24-hour cycle to synchronize your circadian clock. And so, those people knew the neuroscience of what was driving it, and I understood the science and technology of the LEDs and how to create spectrums of light, not just colors of light, but the wavelengths of light that adhere to these receptors, and being able to recreate a 24-hour cycle inside space station so that people could synchronize to this 24-hour cycle. And so the interesting thing that happens if you don't have anything to synchronize to, like it's the same thing as if you were in a cave for a week or longer, is that we all have this clock, internal endogenous clock that's close to 24 hours, but it's not exact, and everyone's isn't exactly the same. So yours might be 24.2 and mine might be 24.1. That's only 6 minutes, but it continues to persist at that rate. So on day one, it's 6 minutes. On day 10, it's 60 minutes. And on day 100, it's 600 minutes. And so now, before we start drifting from each other, and if we're trying to work together on a project, like you might be ready to go and I might be ready to go to bed. So then team cohesion becomes a little bit of an issue. So having something to synchronize our clocks will help us be in line with each other, help us be in line with the schedule, and help us, perform better on shift, sleep better, when it's time to sleep, all
And
those
just to be
things.
clear too, the it's the light that is the signal to reset kind of no matter what you are, even if you flew on an airplane to a different time zone, right? You could step out into the light and help set that circadian rhythm within
That's right.
that space,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
That's what,
And so but it's specific wavelengths of light within that light that is really triggering it.
okay.
And really, it comes down to kind of a blue sky response. So there's a lot of that. The wavelengths of light that's most sensitive to is really a blue sky color. Um,
Mm,
but interestingly, if you look at most white lights that are out there, they're all pretty absent of these sky blue wavelengths because what happens is, like I mentioned before, this receptor isn't visual, so it goes to different parts of the brain. So we have red cones, green cones, and blue cones that kind of handle vision.
yep,
And so all the new electric lighting technologies, all the energy efficient lighting technologies are try to maximize that visual response. So they pinpoint those receptors, those visual receptors, and they really kind of leave out that melanopic or that sky blue receptor like altogether. So even though it may look bright, biologically, it's really not doing the job at all.
that makes sense. You think about the so what Robert is talking about is like in our retina, we have the visual and cells, which are, yes, the cones and rods, and they help us out with seeing daylight. And then the rods help us out with like nighttime and peripheral vision. And then the melanoptic ganglion cells, they only discovered like 20 years ago, right? And they're
Yep.
in the bottom part of our eye. They're not even the retina. They're not responsible for vision at all. And they're picking up that overhead light. But that's interesting. I didn't know that they're picking up strictly blue light. And that's something that we talked about too, is that there's this myth out there that blue light is bad for you.
Hmm.
That I think a lot of people are saying, and you kind of mentioned that's probably people want to sell the blue blocker glasses.
Yep.
What do you kind of have anything to add for that?
Yeah, and I would say, well, blue light is bad at night, but it's really good during the daytime hours. So what we know is that that blue sky signal, where it projects to in the brain, and when I say it projects, which means it's like almost like a neurological connection,
Uh-huh.
um, which it projects to the habenula where serotonin is produced. It projects to the ventrolateral preoptic nucleus, which is where alertness is driven. And it projects to the circadian clock. So it synchronizes the clock, drives how we feel, drives how alert we are. We do also know that there's a pathway in there that also drives learning and focus. All of those things are kind of driven by this blue sky signal, and it's like a direct connection. So it's not like, you know, it goes a couple different ways. Like when we take medicines and pharmaceuticals, like there's things that it's like it's helping or antagonizing or like blocking or amplifying, and then you kind of get the downstream effect of that blocking or add amplification, which of course there's always downstream consequences or side effects of that. But this is like directly blue light drives mood, focus, alertness, and drives your circadian clock to know that it's daytime. It is very, very fundamental. And I think one of the interesting things that I've learned is that like it's not just a human thing. Every animal, every plant, everything has this same set of sensors, um, even things that are in, the ocean use. So what's interesting about that is the ocean transmits those blue wavelengths. That's why the sky is blue and why the ocean is blue, because it's
Oh,
actually transmitting those wavelengths of light better than any other wavelength of light. And so there are things in the ocean that are responding to that light signal and really kind of organizing day activities versus night activities. And it really just always is day is the active portion and night is the rest and recovery portion.
that's amazing. That's funny that you say that because that's why I was even wanted to start like the concept of Earth centric lighting because there's not just human centric
Yeah.
lighting, it's Earth centric lighting. Like everything lives on this planet. And as you were saying before we started the recording here, that uh, like without light, there isn't life. It's a big impact on
Yeah.
how we feel and how we live. And that's really interesting too with the uh with the blue light because that's so funny. I think I've heard people say, and there's this fear around it, like causing cancer or doing this, but no, it's just blue light's good for you. It's just the time of day in which you get it. And
Yep.
then in the evening, if you can have most light that's overhead and bright turned down, that helps out a lot too. And then kind of gets you ready for sleep and helps out that circadian rhythm. So I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
I think what you're doing is super cool. I want to talk about your product, but too, I do want to kind of jump back if it's okay, unless you're done saying about, because I feel like we kind of breezed over it, and it was something really cool that you work at NASA. Uh,
Yep.
how long did you work at NASA for?
I worked for just a few years, and then kind of started my own thing here. Because so what I was doing, so I worked with them on as a consultant afterwards. But I
Uh-huh.
was there at Kennedy Space Center at the Space Life Science Lab, um, for just over 2 years. And we were looking at figuring out how to do things to, colonize life on the moon and Mars. And, the key things
Wow,
are
that's really
nutrition,
cool.
um, light, and water. Those are like the main fundamental things that you need to sustain life. And I think one of the things that's interesting, and uh, in a previous podcast, you had mentioned we actually did what can grow on Mars. And Mars doesn't have the ozone layer like we do here,
Hmm.
which means that all that UVC and all that other wavelengths of light could get through. And it turns out not a lot. Like UVC kills like everything. And
Yeah,
no life could really survive there. So you really need to be able to create that ozone layer to block out those short, really, really short wavelengths of light that are really kind of just something that could destroy life.
right.
So we're looking at every angle of it. What are we doing for long duration missions? Can people synchronize to a Mars Sol, which is 24.6 hours, I believe, which is a lot longer than our average circadian clock is 24.2 hours. We are able to synchronize to a 24-hour day, but can we synchronize to a 24.6-hour day? These are all the things that we're kind of looking at, and trying to figure out what's possible, if we were able to sustain life on Mars.
Dude, that's so cool. I feel like, yeah, not a lot of people can say that on their resume, and that's cool that you can say that in the stuff that you're working on. That sounds very, very good experience, and then probably learned a lot and got to
Yeah.
uh, elevate your knowledge too and
Yeah.
help
So,
inspire for this.
and so why I was only there for a little bit was, it's a fun story, or I don't know if it's a fun story, but when I was developing the lighting for space station, I reached out to a very large LED manufacturer and saying, "Hey, there's this other thing that's important, to our physiology, and I need a custom LED in order to adhere to this other reception system." Um, and that company said, "That's that's nice, and that's a nice story, Robert. But how many space stations are there? There's no business case for doing something for this, this receptor."
Yeah,
And so I said to myself, I was like, wow, I need to lead this by example. Like I believe, and the data was starting to come out, that this isn't just a space station thing, that
yeah,
people spend so much time indoors, that this is a deprivation thing that everyone has. And that's what we've been trying to solve for the past 10 years now, is how to bring that light that is abundant outside, but we're not outside getting it, and bring it into the built environment so that we're making everyone happier, healthier, and
dude.
more alert.
Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. I feel like because um, not a lot. That's why what that guy said to you, that manufacturer, that's a guy working for a lighting supply company that builds lights, and he's not even aware of it. But the last 300,000 years, we've evolved to the rising and setting of the sun.
Yep.
And then only 150 years ago, the electric light bulb was invented, and it has advanced and came out with so many variations within that 150 years, and we spend so much time indoors,
Hmm.
and we're not even aware of how it affects us. And like you were saying with the supplements and the medications that we take to try to make these things feel better, I 50% of the brain space is dedicated to vision. And that's not even the part that you're talking about, the melanoptic
Right.
ganglion cell that helps out with releasing those chemicals for the circadian rhythm and makes you feel good. So I think light has a huge impact if we can learn to do it correctly and in that space and leverage light to align with people's biology, and it's going to be huge. Um,
Yep. Yeah, I think
uh,
what you just said, Tip, just kind of made me think about an analogy, and I think I might have used it in the talk, is that, you know, the other, we think we know what our eyes do because like we see it and it represents 90% of our, our senses, um, or our sensory input. But like it's also kind of like what we know about the ear is like the obvious thing is it handles hearing, listening to this podcast is what your ears are used for. But you don't realize until something goes wrong that it also handles your balance system and your vestibular system. And so
yeah,
only when something goes wrong that you're like, oh man, you get vertigo or something because your middle ear's messed up. Then it becomes very obvious. So, in the same way, the eye has two functions. There's the obvious one, which is vision, but there's this non-obvious thing that is that does all these physiological daytime responses that are driving your sleep, your wake, your mood, your focus, and your alertness. And it's very, very basic. And it's not until, and I think like one of the fun facts is that there are blind people who still have this reception system intact. I think it's about 25% of blind people still have this
mm,
reception system intact, and they still are able to synchronize with the 24-hour cycle, even though they can't see anything.
that's incredible to think about that. Yeah, that's really, it makes a lot of sense though. And then also, you think about the eyelid, why it's so thin. So when you're sleeping, you can actually get photons enter in the eye in the
Yeah.
morning when the sun comes up and
Yep.
starts releasing those chemicals of alertness and time
Yeah.
to start waking your body up and uh,
Yeah.
all
We
that.
did we did a really cool study with parents having issues getting their kids up in the morning. And so we have some personal products that we developed that could automatically sunrise over the course of the day. So basically if you you set up when you want it to wake you up or when you want to wake up, say it's 7 o'clock. Actually for these kids it was more like 6:30. So about 15 minutes earlier, it just slowly starts to sunrise. And when it sunrises, it's before the sun actually breaks the plane, you have this blue sky that starts to glow. And and it starts getting a little bit brighter and a little bit brighter and a little bit brighter, just how it does in nature. And what that does is actually really profound. One, we have like this synergistic response where that blue light gets through our eyelids, starts the cortisol awakening response, which is a natural response. Um, But two, when we sleep, we have different phases of sleep. We have light sleep and we have deep sleep. If an alarm clock wakes us up in light sleep, we feel fine. If it wakes us up during deep sleep, that's when we feel groggy. That's when you kind of woke up on the wrong side of the bed because you've got kind of shook out of this like very deep state of sleep. So light and these very light and slowly, gradually getting brighter, it's not enough to pull you out. It's not enough to wake you up out of deep sleep, but it is enough to wake you up out of light sleep. So basically it makes sure, and this is what we're naturally designed to do, is it makes sure that it wakes you up in the most optimal time to wake up within your sleep phases. And so when we did the study, we saw these parents went from, trying to wake up their kids 3, 4 times to try to get them out of bed. That the first time they were either already up or they like woke up right away. And with tremendous, so we saw a 93% success rate after just 2 weeks. So
That's so cool. So it's not something that you had to implement on a regular basis before it started working. It the body just responded to it right away.
it's like the most natural, like we are designed to wake up with the rising sun. Like when you think about it, it's like so intuitive. And then what we've done is like we have electric lights. And then we just built society around social time as opposed to solar time. And that just makes it where it's convenient. And if it's convenient for the schedule, and kids have to wake up in the dark, so be it. Or, actually, people have to wake up in the dark to go to work and beat traffic and, get on an airplane. We have slowly evolved to revolve around social time as opposed to solar time. We don't operate according to the sun anymore.
That's amazing. And then I do want to ask, that's a really good point, but I do want to ask, you're talking about uh the sleep cycle and when, as long as it's the right time you wake up in the sleep cycle, is everyone's sleep cycle different?
Well, so generally speaking, we all have these 90-minute REM, non-REM cycles that we phase through. Um, so that's what I mean when I'm talking about it. So when you actually the belief is that when you actually it doesn't start when the timer doesn't start when you start sleep, that we have all these different 90-minute phases where it resets. And usually on the front part of our sleep, it's the deep sleep. Um, and then on the back part is the REM sleep. So my understanding of this is, and this is pretty much true with most people. There are those people who are just genetically different and are short sleepers. But generally, the first part, that deep sleep, is the where you're repairing your body, and the second half, where you get the REM sleep, is where you're repairing your mind. So we have, I think from a survival standpoint, we have decided to repair our body first and then our mind second. Our body is important, making sure that it's ready for hunting, gathering, just like surviving. That's important first, and then the mental aspects are secondary to it. So that is how we prioritize sleep. That's my understanding of the evolutionary reason why we sleep the way we do. I think maybe your question might be more in line to like you being a night owl versus an early bird and that kind of chronotype differences. Those are something different. But I think my understanding is that we all have the same kind of 90-minute windows, and we all do deep sleep first, body repairing, and REM sleep in the second half, and that's where the mental repairing comes.
No, that's helpful. No, I did think you answered my question perfectly, because that's what I wasn't 100% sure of. Um, and like you're saying, everybody has a different circadian rhythm. I didn't know if everyone had a different sleep cycle, what they go through, but it sounds like that's pretty well developed and unified in the way that it works with that rest and repair, and then um, that REM, and then the light sleep, and it kind of goes, is supposed to go in and out of that when it works correctly. And probably the best way to make it work correctly is to get some good lighting that
Yeah.
helps your body align to that.
Yeah, one of the things and this is just a theory, but I think that one of the things that you find is, and especially for the people in the, Spokane, Idaho area, like those northern climates, is as the days get shorter. So the way that I understand it, this is a seasonality thing, is that you kind of have two melatonin peaks. It's a bimodal process. And so when the days get short, that melatonin rhythm gets wider, and you get a big trough in the middle of that melatonin, which means that you have kind of the deep sleep in the beginning. Then you kind of wake up, and like there's like
Mm,
stories of this like biphasic sleep, which means that you sleep, you wake up, do some stuff, and then you go to sleep again. Um, on the second half of sleep, that's when you get all that REM sleep. And so I think like as you get into these shorter days, I think when you have sleep issues, you might be only hitting one of the two humps. You don't realize that it's so important to try to consolidate those two things by having, I think it's most important to have something that's really more in line with a 12-hour day, 12-hour night kind of cycle.
hmm
And when you think about the evolution of us, life began at the equator, and we really kind of nomadically chose to be where we are. It probably isn't the best thing for our health and well-being to have these, dramatically different seasons. And you compound that with, okay, you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't sleep anymore until you what do? You flip on the lights and now you've disrupted your sleep and you've kind of missed one of those
Yeah.
two critical points in your sleep. I think that's like just like really, really important um, for those northern latitudes to understand.
Yeah. I I that's awesome to hear because yeah, you're educating me on some of that stuff too. And I feel like like I said when we were talking earlier, I started off in supply and construction, and then uh, uh, I started my business in design. I really started learning a lot more about neurobiology and ophthalmology and all that. And it's amazing how the body works and the natural chemicals we have the ability to release in our body and without taking anything. And a
Right.
lot of that is aligned to light. And I had something really important I was going on there, but I lost it, but that's okay. So I do want to jump into because when you did your CEU course, it looked like we got to see some pictures of installations of some of your product. Do you want to tell us about your company and your product? It's this cool light, and it's nothing like I've seen before, where
Yep.
like some of the you can adjust the CCT, but there's also a mode where it looks like there's both separate color temperatures because you're saying that even during the day throughout in the sky there's different CCTs and you kind of need that mixture, right? Am I
Yeah, that's right.
messing that up? Yeah,
That's
okay.
exactly right. You basically have the sun, this is actually kind of a gray day right now, but out here in San Diego, but that's really the most like monochromatic the colors get out in nature. There's always kind of an interplay of kind of things that are more warm and more cool coming hitting you from multiple angles. But from a neurobiology standpoint, basically the way I see it is the way that we design currently is what goes on that task plane, what goes on the floors, like what goes on more of the horizontal planes more so than what goes on the vertical. And you go out in nature, there's a lot of vertical light. And what we're kind of understanding is the vertical light is kind of drives how you feel, and the horizontal light is kind of drives really what you see. And so if those receptors are that drive how you feel, if that vertical light sees more of that blue sky, you're going to get better. You're going to get better mood, focus, and alertness. And so our product kind of drops into, and this is the Skyview tile. Actually, all our Skyview products do that. They have a lot of vertical surface and they present both the sun and the sky, and that sky kind of
Mm.
looks into it has a vertical look because if you look at a window, you see a blue sky and that vertical plane. It's not falling down on the floor. You're seeing it up in the sky. So I think there's a lot to that. And then we pair it with the warm sun underneath. So combining those two things gives you kind of a much warmer color down where you're looking, cooler color temperatures at the higher angles. And this combination of light kind of hitting you, different types of light hitting you from different angles, actually feels very natural. So it adds like almost a depth. So from a lighting designer standpoint, we think about layers of light, changing different intensities on tasks, task light versus general illumination versus other things. I'm not. I've lost the proper term for. I know there's three major ones, um, but if you also add another dimension of color, layering color, this actually really adds a lot of depth to the way that colors are rendered. And it is very, very natural to see this. So what we've seen is that natural elements like plants and people and skin tones just look better and more natural under this type of kind of like dynamic and gradiated light. So that is what our technology does. And what we've learned is like, okay, in the studies, we've shown that this boosts mood, focus, alertness. We've shown studies that shows it reduces caffeine consumption, boosts sleep quality. Um, but it also feels very natural and it feels the aesthetic is very pleasing. I know the form of the tile is something that is a little bit different than what most people are expecting. But that's on purpose because it needs to provide that sky and sun together. And that is just something that's a really cool opportunity for the designers to kind of do something different with design and really have something that is not just one color of light, but brings in all these different colors together.
Man, that's so cool. I love that. Yeah, it was really neat seeing that product. And what is the name for the people listening to? What is the name of your company, right? It's
Yeah, sorry. The name is BIOS
uh
of the company, and the brand of so we make light engines and spectrum technology that we partner with our OEMs that create a white light product. What we've learned, and then we also have our Skyview line that covers these products that have this blue sky and warm sun combination together. And what we've learned is sky blue is much better than the standard LED
mhm.
lights. It's definitely a step in the right direction, but the sky view is really kind of what takes it to that next level, combining spectrum, color, intensity, and direction all together. Combining those things into one product is really what you need to create that real strong delineation of day versus night.
I want to take a break here to talk to you guys about lighting design so you can learn how to take advantage of your space and create a beautiful space, not only that looks good, highlights architectural detail, but one that aligns with your biology. And that's what lighting design is. It's creating an environment. It's both a science and an art that's creating an environment that looks amazing and feels great. Have you ever walked into a space and wondered, why does this feel so good or why does this feel so shitty? 90% of the time it's because of the lighting we've developed to the rising and setting of the sun for the last 300,000 years. It is very, very important to get the right amount of lighting, the right kind of lighting, and have it highlight the right details. And it's not just about flooding the space with light. You can do that if you need to, but maybe that's a layer. And then you have different layers of light to make the space change with your internal clock, with your internal circadian rhythm. And having someone, a professional, to create those plans makes a big difference. If I gotta get knee surgery, I don't go to my general health doctor for knee surgery. Just like you shouldn't really go to the architect or the electrician to get a lighting design. You go to someone who's specializes in it and has years and years of practice under their belt and knows what they're doing. They know how to specify the right product, how to light it up in a way that makes the space look and feel wonderful. And this is not something that's easier. This is not installing canvas wafer lights in the ceiling. If you're looking for that, that's not this. This is we're calling out, looking at if something's 10-foot ceiling height, 18-foot ceiling height, if it's drywall, if it's wood ceiling, and we're calling out different part numbers for that. And we're calling out different optics based on the ceiling height or how far it is off the wall to highlight certain art pieces. And that takes a lot of detail and a lot of work and a lot of time in design labor to develop that piece, to create that experience for the home, for the business, whatever it is that you're doing. And that's exactly what we do at TK Line Designs. We charge for line design services and we come up with the playbook, the plan for your team to execute and to follow. And I have experience in the field, so I know how hard it can be to install certain things. So we design around that with mindful thought and practice. Again, it's not like the canvas downlights, but it's also uh, not concepts that are unachievable because we know how to design mindfully with the contractor in thought. And at the end result, at the end of the day, you, the homeowner, the business owner, is our client. And if you're happy, then we're happy. That's what we strive to do is make your guys' space feel amazing, make you sell more product, make you sleep better at night. And you can do that with lighting. So if you want to hear more about how to uh, do that, please reach out to us on our website, www.tklightingdesign.com, or you can email me directly, and that is tkessner@tklightingdesign.com, and you can get all this stuff in the show notes as well. And if you've been thinking about it, and maybe you want to learn to do this yourself, maybe you're an architect or interior designer, we do have a kitchen lighting design course for sale on the website right now, and it is being offered at a sale price. And if you are hitting it at the right time for a limited time only till December uh, 21st of 2025, we're doing an additional 40s off if you put in additional $40 off if you put in sunset sale, all caps, and you can get that and check it out and uh, elevate your game. All right, back to the show. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've never seen anything like your product. It was really, really cool. And then hearing you talk about it too, it makes a lot of sense. Like once you hear it, it feels like it's natural knowledge that we all know, but we don't have to think about because our bodies just responded to it for years and years. But then we're just, a lot of people are unaware of it now that, the electric light bulb has
Yeah.
come out. And then so you're definitely pioneering, I think, a pathway that a lot of people are going to finally start to realize, and it will help them out a lot because you also mentioned something when you're doing that CEU course, and I think it's really important for people to hear what were the percentages of the and the health disorders reduced by, because there was like a,
Yeah.
I don't want to quote it, but like depression, bipolar,
Yeah.
and uh, several other things that had a significant reduction. And they did studies with your lighting, right? Or with similar lighting.
They were doing, it was really just, it wasn't with our lighting. That was a huge, huge study,
Uh,
over years. And it was with over 85,000 participants. And they just basically said getting, getting too much light at night and not enough light during the day, that combination leads to a significant, increase in psychiatric disorders, including a 60% increased risk in depression, 60% increased risk in committing self-harm. I believe it was like in the 30-40% of things like PTSD,
mm,
anxiety, psychotic episodes. But it was in on order of, as much as 60%. I think that the interesting thing is, like we're seeing that depression is at an all-time high now. We're seeing things like anxiety is an all-time high, and we're seeing that like we're spending so much time indoors. So
yeah.
there's got to be a correlation between those things. You know, I grew up, and you probably grew up in the same time. When we were kids, we went outside and we played. And
Hmm.
I'm a father of four kids, and man, it's hard. Like there's a social pressure. Like you can't just let your kids go out and play. You got to schedule play dates. You got to like arrange to like watch them all the time because there's all this like social pressure that like they're gonna get kidnapped and all
Yeah.
the things.
I've
Uh,
had to learn to laugh at that too. That's awesome that you got four kids. I got four kids too, four
oh,
daughters.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, man, it's a lot of work. It was a wake up call.
Hmm.
I still feel like I really struggle with it, but I love them very much and I do the best I can. But uh, there is all that fear stuff just kept me stuck. And finally, I had to let it go because I remember we're going to the hospital when my wife was giving birth to our third child, and the gal was like, uh, working there was like, we had to take off her ankle monitor because it was just rubbing her skin raw and she's
Hmm.
crying. And maybe it was on her wrist, I don't remember. But uh, the gal working there comes in, she's like, "Do you want your kid to get kidnapped?" And we're both, I look at her, I'm like, we're in the hospital. There's not people running in here to steal babies. Just
Yeah.
freaking stop spreading the fear. And then they literally wanted me to sign a waiver before leaving for crossing the parking lot without their help. I'm like, I can, I'm a very capable person. I can walk across the parking lot. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, man. There is all this fear out there and it keeps you
Yeah.
stuck. And then,
Yeah. And keeps them stuck inside.
Yeah, yes. And I grew up playing video games too and stuff and being indoors, but there is something huge, I think, to because then I feel like my mom and dad always made a point for us to go outside and do something, and then you do feel better. You feel like, oh yeah, I can breathe a little bit. Yeah, it's like, and
Yeah,
yeah, if we can get, you said, um, that this link to depression, people are at all-time high depression, all-time high anxiety, and they're going to like spending lots of money, I know, on therapy and stuff and trying to figure it out. But if I think if they could understand like hormones and chemicals, and you have
yeah,
those natural hormones and chemicals within you, you just need to align it correctly. Lighting can be a big impact for that. And
huge,
yeah,
huge.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think what I said in that talk was the researcher basically said like if you could just get people to to get more light in the day, get less at light at night, you could broadly improve mental health throughout the world. That's a huge statement.
yeah, that
And
is
I
a huge
and
statement.
what I kind of said was, we all know, and you got your audience probably knows a lot, about seasonal affective disorder.
Hmm.
But when we spend so much time indoors, like what season is it really, because what I do know is that people in Arizona and Texas, they get seasonal affective disorder in the summer because that's the time when it's so hot outside that they're basically trapped indoors and they
Mm.
can't get outside. It's so hot. I mean, I you talk to people in Arizona, when do they go outside and exercise or go for a run? They either go at 4 in the morning or they go at 11 at night because any other time it is so hot. It's just impossible to be outside. And so they get it in the exact opposite time. And I think that really comes down to indoor affective disorder and how do you um, kind of stop that? And how do you kind of think about, okay, if that's the problem, how do you fix it? How do you bring something indoors that's going to help with the fact that
Yeah,
we're always indoors?
totally. Because I know I when I started learning a lot of this stuff, I was like, well, I can't spend most of my time outside. I need to work, right?
Yeah.
Can't work on a laptop outside. And I think I'd love to have you on the show again because this is just talking about this is so important. Even if, you know, we make slow progress in our lifetime, I feel like this is something that can make a big leaps when people start to learn the connection between our bodies and light and
Yeah.
how it can really affect them. And it can be a huge impact on their health and well-being.
Hmm.
And it's
Hmm.
like I think like thinking of it like taking a supplement, um, or nutrition even. It might be another good example if you're just eating a bunch of processed foods. Yeah, you're gonna feel like crap. It reminds me of the wafer light that gets put in everywhere, and it because
Yeah.
it's cheap. And then but if you get some organic foods and different greens and oranges and red different variety and meats and
Yeah.
fruits, and you're mixing that up, you're going to feel a lot better. Um, I think lighting is very similar in that way, that if you get
Yeah.
some good quality lighting in there, that it's going to make you feel and perform better and sleep better and all that stuff. So, um,
Right.
I do want to ask, because we talked a little bit about the product here and how can people, if they're liking what they're hearing, which I think a lot of people are, how can they get a hold of you and reach out to you guys for your design team? Or because do you help out, do you supply a product too, or and you build it and you sell it to distribution, right? And then
Yep.
distribution supplies it to the contractor. Do you guys also help out architects and engineers with design too, if they need custom design work, or is that kind of through the rep? How does that work?
Yeah, so we do have rep agents throughout. We're building it out right now, but by the time someone hears this, it's probably going to be pretty full throughout the nation. But So you could get a hold of me through LinkedIn. That's where I usually am most active. Our website is bioslighting.com, and it'll kind of take you to three kind of different subsections. We have a horticulture line that kind of grows plants. We have the sky blue line, which is that white light OEM product, and then our sky view is kind of that what we're talking about today is that thing that kind of brings in that blue sky and warm sun together that really kind of takes circadian lighting to the next level. We do like we're not lighting designers. We don't, but we're willing to help lighting designers and hold their hand through the process because there is a lot of, it's not just like what you're familiar with. It's not, lighting design. You guys know how to make things look good. You know how to create the visual scene. This biological scene is uncomfortable for a lot of designers. So we want to make sure that we could hold your hand, work you through the math, and we could provide some recommendations on how to do it best, how to kind of throw in those layers of light and kind of show you how to kind of get things done from a biological standpoint and work with your design narrative and kind of guide you through that process and give you some suggestions and recommendations. But we don't do lighting design. We don't compete with lighting designers or anything like that. But we work with lighting designers to kind of make it better,
Well, I think
biologically
that's
speaking.
really helpful because even like I feel like people are around here, at least in Idaho. I think in other cities they're more used to it, or they're like having a hard time understanding even just tunable white. But so
Hmm.
then I like to think, and I've heard some people, I think they're just not aware, say they don't like different CCTs if they can't stand it. They want everything the same. But I think that sameness is what's not good for you. So even think about working with a lighting designer. Maybe it's even something, correct me if I'm wrong here, where your guys' product is in the main ambient light, and then they can still do different CCT accent
Yeah.
lights or
Yeah.
tunable white or something like that throughout. And then this is the main make you feel good during the day, right? And then in the
Yeah.
evening, and
Yeah. Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think that'd be a good combo. Yeah.
Yep.
So, because like you said, by adding, there's this really good book called What is Color? I don't know if you've ever read that, but